Hey guys, Tyler down here at Emerald City Guitars with my pick of the day, this 1960 Fender Jazzmaster in beautiful original Olympic white finish. Now, these Jazzmasters came out in 1958, and at that time, Fender had a pretty good handle on the country guitar and rock and roll guitar market. The Stratocaster was extremely successful, as was the Tele. But a market they really didn't have any sort of foothold in was the jazz guitar market, which was of course dominated by Gibson at the time with their arch tops. So sometime in 1957, what Leo did was sit down and try to figure out a design that could give Gibson a run for its money for jazz players. So in order to compete with Gibson, Leo came up with a few features that he thought would appeal to jazz players. So one of these features was this Brazilian Rosewood fretboard. Obviously, ebony and rosewood had been long mainstays as Gibson fretboard materials. I'd never been seen on a Fender before, so that's a feature that he thought might appeal more to jazz players. So another new feature on these Jazzmasters that was brand new at the time was these completely redesigned single coil pickups. They're still single coils like Strat or Tele pickups, but as you can see, they're much bigger. They have a much wider aperture, but they're really thin as far as the coil goes. So these were designed to give the guitar a little bit of a warmer voice that he thought would appeal to jazz guitarists. So another completely new feature on this model was a separate rhythm circuit, which basically is operated by this switch and allows the player to run only the neck pickup through a fixed tone cap. And this was meant to provide a jazzier tone, but in reality, it just made it sound like there's a blanket over the amp. Nobody really uses it, and it's nothing more than a punchline for people who play Jazzmasters. So another feature aimed at the jazz guitarist was this offset waist design. The idea was that because most jazz guitarists at the time performed while sitting down, they would design a body that more comfortably fit on your lap while sitting. And the result was this offset design that we now all know and love. So another new feature was this completely redesigned vibrato that basically sat down in a route towards the back of the body. It was a much smoother operation than let's say the Strat Trim or even Bigsby's or other vibrato units at the time. It's a pretty neat design. Obviously it's not made for things like dive bombs or really intense use, but for just the casual little shimmy, it was a really great addition. So all these new features though would come at a price. This was the new top of the line, surpassing the Stratocaster. When these came out in 1958, they were $350, I think $349, whereas the Strat was still $289. Tele was like $209. And I mean, this was over twice the price of an Esquire. So a pretty deluxe model, definitely aimed at the professional musician. So the Jazzmaster was never really popular with jazz musicians as Leo had intended, but it did find sort of a cult following in the surf guitar community. These are actually really popular in surf bands from the early to mid 60s. So just about every surf band you'll see from that era was playing either the Jazzmaster or later the Jaguar. So by the end of the 60s, the heyday for the Jazzmaster had pretty much come to an end. It's relatively rare to see 70s Jazzmasters, and by September 1980, Fender had completely cut it out of their line. So after 4 years of being completely out of production, Fender Japan actually reissued the 1962 Jazzmaster, and it's been producing it pretty consistently ever since. The Jazzmaster wouldn't be made by Fender in America again until 1999 when the AVRI, the American Vintage Reissue series, came out. So this is a 1960 model, pretty much everything you'd want in a Jazzmaster. Of course, beautiful fat slab of Brazilian Rosewood for the fretboard here. You got the cool clay dots. So it's a really cool neck profile. Pretty slim all the way up and down the neck. The nut is just a touch wider than 1 5/8, but really comfortable. Of course, as I mentioned earlier, completely 100% original Olympic white finish that just looks great, hasn't yellowed too much. It has had a very professional refret done, as well as a new nut. They look totally right. I actually think the switch tip may be a reproduction as well, but other than that, it's just entirely original, amazing shape for a player or a collector. So for the playing portion of this demo today, we're going to be running through this amazing Fender Twin amp from the same year as the guitar, actually 1960. Just in fantastic shape, as you can see. That's 2 period correct Bluebell Jensen speakers. It looks amazing, sounds amazing. So let's get this pair together and see what they can do. All right guys, so there you have it. Beautiful 1960 Fender Jazzmaster, an original Olympic white finish with the matching twin amp from the same year. Just an unreal rig together. Come down to Emerald City Guitars, take them both home with you. They're an amazing combo. They'll make your life better. They'll turn all your bad feelings into good feelings. And you can only get them down here at Emerald City Guitars. We'll see you next time.